We declare our right on this earth to be a man, to be a human being, to be respected as a human being, to be given the rights of a human being in this society, on this earth, in this day, which we intend to bring into existence by any means necessary.
Yes. And welcome everybody to another installment of Revolutionary Fourth Sundays. I am Zaid Muhammad. I am the chair of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, and I will have the task of stewarding you through this. We know it will be a very powerful conversation. Today's subject will be the faith of Malcolm X. Although our organization is built around Malcolm's political legacy and his political identity, no serious appreciation, evaluation, elevation, and understanding of Malcolm can be absent of his faith. And so we absolutely wanted to do that. And we also wanted to do this. This was actually conceived in several ways. One, we did a similar conversation on our Facebook page a year and a half ago that included a beloved, cherished freedom fighter believer by the name of Bilal Sunni Ali, who shortly thereafter went to the land of the ancestors. And Bilal just had a very special being and bearing about him as a believing man and as a believing Muslim. And we wanted to really elevate Bilal in that way and just give him some additional due for that. We also thought it was important to look at Malcolm's faith, not just in terms of what it meant to him personally, but how catalytic his legacy is with his faith as his anchor, right? Malcolm was catalytic as a Muslim. You can say what you want about its doctrine, but he made the Nation of Islam move and grow exponentially and was the best model of what a Muslim looks like coming from that particular framework. To this day, I would dare say, without any reservation, right? And then when he leaves the Nation of Islam and formally embraces Sunni Islam, he gives us another example. But all the while, he has this arc of strong foundation, faith, and commitment that not only allows him to elevate himself from the most dangerous and most dark places of turmoil that would ultimately be his what's the language you want to use? His moral story, his moral arc to help those of us who also were captured in the deepest and darkest places of the American nightmare, showed us all how to get up out of that with faith, how to clean ourselves up, how to become redemption songs with faith, right? All of those expressions that we know Malcolm and his various claims on faith were guided by clear commitment. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be forever upon him, said, religion is sincerity. And I would dare say if there was the one item that streamlines Malcolm's relationship to faith, that makes him stand out heads over tails over so many, is the depth of his sincerity. And anyone wants to challenge that, we can spar, for as long as you want. And I'll get my legs back in shape if I need to do that, right? But I would dare say that is indeed what we want to talk about. Then, of course, we have this other newfound development. And I'm saying this with bated breath. September 25th at 1 p.m., we lost one of our most cherished and beloved freedom fighters. And someone who was huge to me personally. In the passing of Sada Olugbada Shakur. So we will start, of course, with all of us having our own say about that amazing Black woman. And we will go into our conversation for the day. Some other notes about us. I want to apologize to everyone also. We have this back and forth fight with the mother fathers of Facebook and these social media platforms that our Facebook page has been taken down unceremoniously again. We are in the process of going through a rebooting of our broader organizational's webpage and all of that, and that should help us and protect us and clear up what that give us some more safeguards when that is once that is resolved. So we want to apologize for that. Our Facebook page has always been a beacon of light and of sharing around the world. We have a very international Facebook page that reflects the breadth of Malcolm's impact and Malcolm's legacy. Young people from all over, from you name it, from Europe, the Caribbean, Latin America, Africa, all weigh in on that Facebook page. So we apologize that is down. So those of you who have me on Facebook, if they don't take me down again, you see me doing this a post a day for the Centennial, right? And so don't mind me if I'm tagging you every day because you belong to us in some kind of way. That's why I'm tagging you, right? But that's to make up for that. So we want to apologize for that. But we carry on, and we're looking forward to getting in some real space back in New York. I want to thank everybody who's been helping us in our intro to the work on the Newark side. Just a few weeks ago, we did a book treatment and the embracing of a young scholar from England named Kahindi Andrews, who gave us the book. Nobody Can Give You Your Freedom on Malcolm. Young black radical scholar, trying to hold a line across the big pond in London. Sharp young brother who we're very proud of. We did a book celebration for I Am Maroon on Russell Maroon Schultz, one of the most feared combatants of the Black Panther Party and the Black Liberation Army, like Asada and Sekou and others who we'll talk about today, right? His memoir was released recently and has been overseen by his son and daughter, Sharon and Russell Schultz. We brought them to the Source of Knowledge bookstore a little while ago, right? So we appreciate those who have come through. I'm hoping that last item that we just mentioned with Brother Kahinde, that was taped. We haven't gotten a tape yet from our co-sponsors, Community Movement Builders, but we're looking forward to that. And when we get it, we will put it on our YouTube page. Also, as always, we spend some time looking at a particular political prisoner. And we've got to touch two. It was the initial one, of course, is Imam Jamil El-Amin, right? And Imam is, fighting for what's left of his life, trying to clear his name in prison. And we should take it with supreme urgency. And we cannot talk about Asada without not talking about Kamal Siddiqui, a comrade and the father of their only child, Kikuyu Siddiqui, right? Kikuyu Shakur. And we're in the middle of a parole campaign for Kamal. So there's some very real places to go. Some are asking, what do we do now that Assad is gone? And they'll support our political prisoners for sure. And those are two that definitely need our love and support like never before. I'm going to do a modest libation statement that will reflect these new ancestors. And Baba James has joined us, right? And we will get right into this conversation. We want to get a lot in this hour, and we've got the right minds and experts to take us to where we want to go over the course of this hour.
Excellent. Now, Baba Zai, may I interrupt one moment, please?
Sure.
The flyer for the event is still on the screen and is, in fact, taking up most of the screen space.
Yes. Yeah, I see that. Of course, you would ask me a tech question. I don't have the tech answer, but we'll try and figure it out.
All right.
We'll figure that out. But yeah, we're going to try and do that. So let me just do a brief libation statement, and we'll get into our conversation. Our organization was started way back in 1992. Our first event was in 1993. initiated by none other than the late great Herman Ferguson, a radical educator out of Queens. He joined Malcolm's OAAU and was there up until that fateful day, and afterwards did some serious work that is also a part of this conversation in terms of the organizing, right? Well, the four directions, the north, the south, the east, west, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, and then the call on the Orisha that is Obatala, the white cloth, and the long straight spine. Reflect the dimensions of sincerity and its depth, right? To guide us through this conversation. And I call on Baba Herman Ferguson, our founding elder. I don't think it's an accident of history that Asada would leave us on September 25th, on the anniversary of the passing of Herman Ferguson. For Herman Ferguson, we say Ibaye, Ashe, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe. And I just mentioned Asada, who came to us on July 16th, 1947, on the anniversary of the birth of Ida B. Wells. I lift both of their names up, right? And Asada also comes to us and leaves us on the anniversary of the birth of one of her comrades in the New African Independence Movement, Ahmed Obafemi, who was also September 25th. Some ancestral math that we found irresistible. We said, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, Ashe. I want to say the name of Sekou Odinga, a young man in the midst of this transitional space and conversation, and was one of the liberators of Assad. Oh yes, he was one of the liberators of Assad. Our Underground Railroad is as real as Harriet's, and got some real stuff done, and some real sacrifices were made in that way. For Sekou Odinga, we say Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe, Ibaye, Ashe. Dr. Matulu Shakur, doctor, healer, and a warrior, all of the above, who was a part of that epic operation on November 2nd, 1979, that liberated our beloved heroine. For Dr. Matulu Shakur, we say Ibaye Ashe, Ibaye Ashe, Ibaye Ashe. So for the four directions of the south, the east, and the west, we say Ibaye Ashe, Ibaye Ashe, 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 Ashe. Oh, Bismillah. Let's get into this conversation. As we do, we'll try and figure out that tech piece that you just raised, brother, man. We'll try and figure that out. Baba James, welcome back, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Right. And before you got
on, to my dear brothers.
Before you got on, we were trying to frame the conversation this way. In this hour, we're not going to just talk about Malcolm the Muslim, but Malcolm the beacon of force as a sincere believer whose faith became a lineage of faith and revolutionary commitment in his life and in his martyrdom, and in that very important period that both of you are party to, that important transitional incubation period, right? But I'm gonna say between 1965 and let's say about 1970, early 1970s, when those transitions took place. You standing on Malcolm's shoulders and standing on Malcolm's lineage, really to make some things happen in a very revolutionary way with very revolutionary intent, right? So let me open up with each of you. We just lost someone who we all know personally. I'm going to pull back from my own comments and do them another time in another place because this is your hour. But I want each of you to say something about our sister Asada. And then I want us to come back and also reflect on Bilal, what Bilal represented in that period, in that incubation period, because he was such and I'm not going to be punky when I say this, but he was a sweet brother in the purest sense of the word. Serious warrior, but genuinely pure of heart and very intentional in his faith and in his commitment and in his walk. And would have been in this conversation had we not lost him, right? So open up with some remarks about those two, and we'll go on to this conversation. And Baba James, you got a big birthday coming up. Why don't you go first?
Well, I appreciate that. I don't feel like the oldest. I remember when my mother was in her 85th, she told my children she felt like she was 16. And I didn't understand what she was saying. I know she was struggling, and she overcame for a while with a heart condition. So how did she feel 16? But I think I get it now. It's a spirit thing. And so when we talk about, like, we can't open our mouth today, I was up most of the night. I was listening to Asada. I was reading about Asada. I was just reminiscing through the night. Didn't get to bed until about 6. So my body is kind of slow. But before we could get to our great father, Malcolm, we do have to think of the Sunni Alis. We do have to think of the Sekou Odinga. We do have to think of the Zaid Secure. Sometimes we miss Zaid and we leave his name dormant. Most people didn't know him. His younger brother, Matula, well, Zaid was the youngest. I always thought him as the middle. But Matula Shakur and then his brother, Lumumba Shakur. Because when you think of our sister and our warrior and our queen, when she left the City University and she went out to California and became a member of the Black Panther Party and started organizing, working out there with the party, and then she returned back to the city. Some of the men she worked closest with were the Sokoa brothers, Matulu, Zaid, who died on the turnpike that day, and the big brother Lumumba, and of course with Sister Afeni. And during that period of time, like you're talking about, that was a transitional kind of period. That was the time of the Panther 21. That was the time of the birth of the Black Liberation Army, when people got frustrated and says, okay, we're trying to do this move to feed the children and help the poor and organize the community and get education right and back up police brutality, and they're not moving. And so we have to use some other stimulants. And the efforts of the Black Liberation Army became other stimulants towards our freedom. And one of the leaders, the leaders from the earliest stages was Asada. You know, she didn't come in near the end, and she didn't come in behind some of the brothers. She's one of the genesis element of the Black Liberation Army. And worked the field. She's with the ancestors now, so we can say, yeah, she did stick up the bank. Yeah, she did stick up the drug dealers. Yeah, she did stick up other elements. We used to call it reclamation, to get the reclamated funds to finance the movement that had to go forward. Revolutionaries are not criminals. You know, no one would dare call Che Guevara a criminal except the crazy imperialist white people, or would dare call Patrice Lumumba a criminal, or would dare call, and she is up there with the Patrice Lumumba. She's up there with Fidel. She's up there with Che. This young girl was revolutionary up front and center before she's 20 years old. You know, she's in her thinking and her growth and her development, and all of her life was action. You know the courage it takes to do what she did. You know the commitment it takes to stay the course in the way she did. She could have given up, and she could have, they offered her deals. She could have taken the deals, but she took the beat. She took the torture. She took the solitary confinement for 2 years. You know, she had an opportunity to say, I'm not going to do this any longer. And when she went to Cuba, she could have disappeared and sat quiet. She didn't do that, as some others have done. She wrote, she spoke, she counseled. All the years she was there. It was hard to see her when they said she was 78, because we all still think of her as being 20-something, because she never stopped being who she were. She was a revolutionary, complete. She didn't apologize for it. She declared it over and over again that there would be no freedom for her or anybody else until there was a freedom for all of our people. And that when she talked about her freedom, it was an allusion to the freedom of her people. That's what she sacrificed for. That's what she was committed to. And she wasn't just emotionally caught up in this. She had studied. She understood the politics. She knew what imperialism was. She understood the history of chattel slavery. She knew what colonialism was. She knew what terrorism was. She understood the essence of the enemies. She understood the history of her people that led us to the point where she, as a young lady, had to stand up. Just a total commitment. If we don't raise her to the level of AbdurRashid, we wouldn't be doing our job, because she earned that right, the life she lived. And I think the whole world, I've been hearing from brothers and sisters on the continent who are just finding out, the whole world understood the strength. Because as long as Asada was free, our movement had a meaning it would not have had if she wasn't free. You know, and now that she's transitioned to the realm of the ancestors, she'll be of greater help to us if we understand our sacred science system and know how to reach into that energy that she reached in. She reached into the energy that Malcolm reached in.
Yes.
Malcolm reached into the energy of the Nat Turner, you understand? And they pulled those energies into themselves. She pulled the energies of all the revolutionaries that went before her into her. That woman has strength. It's just, even in Cuba, she was there, but she wasn't hiding. She was hiding right in plain sight. She wasn't hiding from nobody. She didn't care about no CIA flying in with no special squad of Navy SEALs that trying to snatch her. One little brother wrote one day that she was in Cuba and didn't know her, walking across the plaza and saw this woman looking at her and started walking towards him. And that's how he met Assata Shakur. You know, he saw this young man and obviously, no, that must be a young African American here visiting. So she wasn't afraid of the enemy. She proved that before she went to Cuba.
That's right.
You know, and I'm honored to have known her. I'm honored to have been a brother to Zaid, you know, and we had all seen each other 2 weeks before the incident on the turnpike when Zaid wanted to get word to Lumumba that they were all right. This was before they went down south, a few weeks before they went down south. And I was honored to see her about the last time, about a month before she gave birth. On an occasion, and we could say it now because they can't harm her now. We're sitting in a park on 145th Street and playing cards, taking her for a walk so she can get some exercise, me and another comrade. And the enemy came up to her with her picture and asked, "Have you seen this woman?" But she was so well disguised, and we had sprinkled wine on our body so we could smell, right? That was key. And we look all shabby, and the three of us are there. And they came and showed her her picture, showed me and the other brother the picture, and asked, "Have we seen this lady?" And of course, she said, "Get out of here." I don't know, she made some crazy moves, and they just went on to other people in that park. And when we thought the moment was safe, we took her back into where we had retrieved her from for her exercise. And I've never seen her again because, of course, she was moved immediately because that was too close for comfort. And to watch how she stood her ground, even while in Cuba, to listen to the messages she would write to us each year, to have put out a book for the youth now, to learn from her great understanding of what commitment to freedom should be. Yeah, Queen, you are the Queen. You are deserving of being an AbdurRashid. You are an example for the revolutionary world that stands with the highest model of revolutionaries we've ever produced. And so I love you. You are the comrade that will never die. You know.
Me. Ashe.
And then we talk about one of your teachers, because so many of the young men like Sekou and Sunni Ali and so many of the others, and Said and Lumumba, they were in the youth division of Malcolm X's OAAU when Malcolm was assassinated. So many of those young men who came into the Black Liberation Army had a real connection to Malcolm X and his teaching. And you saw that reflected in that Malcolm had a commitment that was immeasurable. I mean, Malcolm was so clear and so determined in, I'm not going to look left, I'm not going to look right, I'm not going to look back, I'm going straight ahead. And that's just what he did. They couldn't frighten him, they couldn't buy him, they couldn't intimidate him. Even his worst enemy knew that if ever there was a human being who had become the tenets of Islam and the Muslim, who had become what a Muslim say a Muslim is supposed to be, that was Malcolm X. You know, he had become the principles of Islam. His character was the Muslim. And the enemy foolishly didn't know that. They kept trying to say, well, we give you a little bit of money, help your organization out, would you spy for us? You know, would you tell for us? They tried blowing up the house, threatening him and the family's life. So many death threats in 1 year on him after he was out of the Nation of Islam, pushed out, he didn't leave. And people tried to talk this myth about how he left. He did not leave. He got pushed out by the elements of the COINTELPRO that was both in and outside of the Nation of Islam. And he had no choice. He would have loved to stay in an organization that he helped to build based on the Islamic principles that made sense for the environment we found ourselves in. But that couldn't happen. And so he walked forward into Islam, into the world. The other thing that Malcolm was so clear on, that anyone who wants to say, I'm struggling, he was clear on his identity as an African. The man was clear. And light-skinned as he was, he had no issues with his identity as an African. He was a historian. He was a well-studied researcher. He knew what the contradictions were in the life struggle of our people. He knew who the enemies were economically, politically, and culturally. And so for me, I know Imam have a lot more to add, but those are the two pieces I would like to give. Malcolm was a Muslim. He was an African, and that wasn't a contradiction. Africa was his race. Islam was his character, his spiritual character, his intellectual character, his psychological character. And those two combinations made him a force unto himself. Even now, they riddled his body with bullets.
Yes, sir.
All those many years ago, and we buried him in a cemetery. We celebrate his spirit every year. But he's right among us in terms of, here's a model that tells you how to behave as an African, as a revolutionary, and as a Muslim.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Imam Talib, the mic is yours. And Imam, I want you to also, in your opening, we're just opening up. Your remarks, I want you to also update us best you can also with the latest on Imam Jamil, because we definitely want to hear that. Okay, we always do that from the top. So when you open the remarks, I want you to do both, if you can, inshallah.
Yes. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the merciful and compassionate God, I bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the creator of the heavens and earth, all things in between. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammad Rasulullah, and the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, to whom the Quran was revealed, was Allah's final prophet and messenger. I'm grateful. I'm greeting everyone online and out there on behalf of the men and women, the young people, and the children of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood. We're over here in the south of Baba Smalls, where he is in New York, and we're here in the village of Harlem.
Yes, sir.
And I'm grateful, Baba Ziad. I'm grateful to you for you contacted me about this program. I'm always honored to be on any program with Baba Small. And although he and I are both elders, he is elder to me. I want to make that clear. He might not feel like it, but he is my elder, just as I am elder to many of those coming after me. And because he is an elder, he is able to access memory files that go back further than my memory files go back. So I am not, I want to say for clarity, I am not one of those who knew Assata Shakur personally. Okay, I'm the one who knows the people who knew her. You know, I'm the one coming up right behind as a young person. I remember very well when she was underground, and you know, you always get drum beats, you know, that let information circulate underground. You mentioned Baba, and I agree with you, Baba Ziad, that there was, in fact, a period of time beginning in 1965 that I would actually extend a little bit beyond the early 70s until the mid 70s, that decade, 1965 to 1975.
Let's walk. Yes, sir.
There is a scholar, historian, Amina Beverly McLeod. She's retired now from DePaul University. She's the author of a book entitled African American Islam. It's the title of a book she wrote many years ago. And she points out that in that decade, following the martyrdom of Al-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz, Malcolm X, as he said, I'll always be known as Malcolm X. In that decade, there was an explosion, and I say that in a positive sense, a dramatic increase in the Black community and the African American community. There was a tremendous expansion and outgrowth in Sunni Islam. And during that period, say from 65 to 70, let's take 5 years, that was the period of time in which the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood was born. Several of the other elder African American Sunni Muslim communities that still exist. All of them, their origins can all be traced back to that period between 65 and 70. The Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood was incorporated in 1967, which is only 2 years later. We'll talk more about that later. So as I said, though, as an elder who's just slightly younger than Baba Smalls and a few others, we were always clear. Now we're being raised our teenage years, as I told my grandson, I have a few grandsons and many granddaughters. So Friday before last, my grandson Imam came with his father, Adam, and his sisters, Alsana and Alina. They came to visit me. It was the first time they'd seen me in a few years. And during our family conversation, Amin started mildly complaining that his father, my son, Adam, made he and his sister read an hour every night before they could go to bed. They had to sit up and read an hour. And so I said to them, well, you know, the reason why he makes you do that is because that's how I raised him. I raised him reading and researching. And so I gave my grandson, who's 16, Baba Small, this grandson of mine, I reached in my library and I gave him his own personal copy of the autobiography of Malcolm X. And I told him, I want you to read this, grandson, and then you and I are going to talk about it. And he was so happy. He was so happy. You know, I don't know if we elders realize this. Well, we are actually living in a period of time now where young people are not reading. We had a program last May at the MIB, Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood, celebrating, honoring the centennial birth of Malik Shabazz. And during a Q&A discussion, it actually came out that many of the young people present had never read the autobiography of Malcolm X, but all of them had seen and were impacted by Spike Lee's movie, Malcolm X. And that really floored me. I remember many years ago, you know, those who know my history, they know I used to be the Imam and the Muslim chaplain at Sing Sing prison. So while I was at Sing Sing, one day I'm talking with one of the prisoners, Senor Alvarez, I used to call him, who was Cuban. Okay. And he said to me that the autobiography of Malcolm X, he grew up in Cuba. He said the autobiography of Malcolm X was required secondary school reading in Cuba when he was coming up as a youngster. So I mentioned these things, kind of segueing into, so when we talk about Asada, as Baba Small said, you know, she's part of a long, honorable tradition, a part of our African tradition of warrior queens. And she, you know, she falls in that category of the warrior queen. I saw, I can't recall if it was a text or a Facebook post from our dear brother, journalist, Bashir Chawi. I think I saw it yesterday. And he pointed out, I said, oh my goodness, look at this. So he pointed out that for many years, there was a bounty of $1 million on that during the Obama administration, Bashir Chawi pointed out that during the Obama administration, the bounty was increased from $1 million to $2 million. And when I read Brother Bashir, my mind automatically went back to the bounty that used to be on the head of our revered ancestor, Harriet Tubman, who, and way back then, She had a bounty of $40,000. Now I'm talking about, this is like Civil War era money, which would be about 40 million a day.
Yes, sir.
She had a bounty on her head, and so people like her and Safia Bukhari, may Allah have mercy on her. See, I'm more of the era of Safia after she was released from prison. Safia is the one that recruited me to the Jericho movement. One night we standing in Harlem, in St. Mary's Church.
That's right.
she and I are standing there. She says, "You ever heard of Jericho?" I said, "Of course." So she said to me, "Well, you are now our Imam." in the Jericho movement. So many of these brothers and sisters, a great many of the brothers and sisters who were in the Black Panther Party and who were in the Black Liberation Army, as the years went by, many of them became Muslim, as they themselves witnessed to in their book, Look for Me in the Whirlwind. They talk about their conversion. I became a Muslim personally the spring of 1971. And I was 20 years old, Baba. I was the age that Baba Smalls was when he got out the military, right? And reported for duty to Sister Ella Collins. I was young, like him. And in the early 70s, now we mentioned the early 70s. The early 70s was when I met the members of the Shakur family, because those of them who were Muslim, and a few of them were Muslim, they used to come to Friday Juma service at MIB, at the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood. So that's how I met Mutulu. At that time, Sister Afeni was practicing Islam. That's how I met her. And so my acquaintance and relationship with them go back to that period of the early 70s. Several members of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood had been members. All of our founding members of the mosque were members of the Muslim Mosque Incorporated, and I guess we'll talk about that later. And as we move through the early 1970s, those branches of that revolutionary tree, when I'm listening to Baba Smalls, I'm reminded you don't even hear the word revolutionary much.
How about that?
Nowadays, replace that with something else.
Social justice.
Yes. And but it was during those early 70s that members of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood, our founding Imam, Sheikh Alam Al-Hajj Ahmad Tawfiq, may Allah have mercy on him. He was a member of both the Muslim Mosque Incorporated and the Organization of Afro-American Unity. And he wasn't the only one of those founders of MIB. So it was during the early 1970s that members of the MIB started meeting and interfacing with the brothers and sisters who had again gone to Cuba in order to learn acupuncture, led by Dr. Mutulu Shakur, and who had returned back to the United States. Some of them had been members of the Black Panther Party. Some of them had been members of the Black Liberation Army. Some of them had been members of the Young Lords Party. So those who had, let us say, medical leanings, they became heavily involved in the work centered around the old Lincoln Hospital, which eventually became the new Lincoln Hospital. And we met and interfaced with many of them. And that was during that period of the early 70s, as those who are affectionately referred to as the lion cubs of Malcolm began to grow and mature, and were doing work in the community. They opened up Lincoln Detox, acupuncture detoxification program, etc. So I'll stop there and turn it back over to Baba as we try to move forward. Oh, and I'm sorry. Please forgive me. And it was also during that period of time that I came to know of our dear brother Bilal Sunni Ali,
Yes, yes, sir.
who you accurately described. I mean, you talk about, African Renaissance man, revolutionary, RNA member, founder, revolutionary artist, all of those sorts of things. And as Allah has blessed us, we've been blessed to be able to still be around and to grow into being elders. And as the years went by and I grew closer and closer to Bilal, closer and closer to Daruba, closer and closer to Safia until she passed away, closer and closer to Sekou Odinga. And I remember all of those years, decades, when Sekou was in prison upstate, and I used to send word to him. And then when he got out of prison, I was right there at National Black Theater at the reception for him. And then he used to worship regularly at the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood until he passed away. And I co-officiated Sekou Odinga's janazah, or traditional Islamic funeral.
Yes, you did.
Service,
Yes, you did.
along with his son. And regarding Imam Jamil just had some surgery. We know that he is suffering from multiple myeloma, skin cancer. And during the course of his years of this incarceration, he's gone blind and recovered his eyesight. Blind from cataracts, and recovered his eyesight. Now he's been battling cancer. About a year a year plus ago, doctors gave him 10 months to live, but that was more than 12 months ago, and he's still here, still battling, still hanging in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And by the way, everyone, October 4th will be the Imam's next birthday. You need to flood his mail with some real love for his sacrifice. And he's another one of those, warriors that stood on Malcolm's shoulders, first as a warrior, then in prison, accepts Islam. Malcolm's example is clear to everybody.
Yeah, Imam Jamil, back when he was A-Trap Brown,
That's right.
became a Sunni Muslim in
That's the
1970.
first bid. That's right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I hope that we'll hear more from Baba Smalls, who what he's saying is completely accurate and instructive regarding the character of the Hajj Malik Shabazz, his absolute dedication to Islam as his way of life, when he was in the nation, as he understood Islam then, as his way of life after he left the nation, as his understanding of Islam continued to grow. And that's what makes this program so important, Baba Zayed, because, we're living in a time when people try to, what I call, freeze frame Malcolm's development, and so they only talk about him when he was in this period of his development or that period.
Right.
And one of the things, people who have a problem, I'm going to say bluntly, people who have a problem with Islam and people who have a problem with Muslims, they tend to try to edit out, Islam from that man's life when, as you said and Baba said, Islam was at the very core of his being.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Ameen. Ashe. Yes, sir. Bobby James, jump on back in this.
Yes.
Let me take this to another place too. There's one of the things I want you to tell the story. You do it far better than I do because you're at the center of it. You were given the mission, right? And we do not take it lightly. And one of my happiest moments was when our organization decided to embrace the annual pilgrimage to the gravesite. I didn't think they were going to do it, quite frankly, right? Mm-hmm. And I was pleasant, but we took that first trip, and the person we knew we had to turn Baba Herman. We couldn't turn Baba Herman. It wasn't going to happen. Right?
Wasn't going to happen.
But the old warrior said, "Well, I'm feeling something." We are in. That's Allahu Akbar. But that story needs to be told. And I want you to emphasize something too, because it's starting to pop up. There's a decent couple films that came out recently that carried a look on Malcolm. And there's, we Islam in our way. And I'm saying that as African people, right? Mm-hmm. I want you to talk about first the story, how you were given the mission from Ella, how she conceived of the mission and its importance. And then there's this fascination and devotion and appreciation that Malcolm had of those of us who are Muslim in the Sudan, who I would dare say was the oldest blacker civilization in the world, right? And why we gather and why that is so central to what we have developed over the years at the ceremony of the graveside. That story needs to be told.
Yes, sir. From the very inception of his assassination, the first birth date in 1965, the Muslim Mosque and the OAAU together started the pilgrimage to the gravesite and started draping the grave in red, black, and green flag. Also, the flag had not been flown in decades by anybody. But Ella went to the Garvey headquarters that was on 7th Avenue, and the brothers asked the brothers to make a flag. And they flew that flag from the windows of the Teresa Hotel. That's where the headquarters was at the time. And believe it or not, a lot of the members walked out because they said we would be charged with treason, because nobody flew any flag in opposition to the red, white, and blue until that flag, May 19th, 1965, that red, black, and green was draped out of that window and flown, and it has been flying ever since. When we first started going to the grave, it was only a couple of carloads. It was so bad, people were so afraid of the enemy. You couldn't have a flyer with Malcolm's picture. Most people would say, no, they're ready to run. So one day Ella said, listen, y'all go down to 42nd Street, take these couple of thousand flags, give it out to the white people. That's what we did, right? And then we started hearing the complaint from folks in Brooklyn and Harlem saying they out there in Times Square giving out Malcolm's flyers to white people, because we had a generic flyer with the same picture every year. And that still didn't bring them back. So we came up with an idea. At 4 o'clock in the morning, we, the brothers, would flood Harlem from 155th Street to Nicholas Avenue to 5th Avenue, and we would fold them like letter size and stick it under the windshield wiper of every car in Harlem that we could find, where you're forced to look at Malcolm's picture. Believe it or not, we had to do this before you could at least drop it down or ball it up or something. But you had to take that flyer. And it may seem weird that we would had to do that, but the enemy had frightened our people. But before I go any further on that, to get to Baba Herman, because Baba Herman is one of the founding people. Baba Herman was with Malcolm. Baba Herman is from the beginning of OAAU. And so, but I want to come back to Imam, because a lot of people see the Imam at all the events in Harlem, and he's speaking. This is the first time I've heard him in the old big public lay out some history that nobody's ever heard, or very few have heard. The Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood is the Muslim Mosque Inc. Let me say that again so you can understand.
Yes, sir.
I'm the only one that could make that determination, and I made that determination, Imam, years ago. The Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood is Muslim Mosque Inc. And probably should have been in the beginning, even when I was elected the Imam. I was a kid. I came in at 21 years old. At 22, I'm the Imam. And I'm like, what is an Imam? I had just started learning Arabic, just started led by Haji Sham Jabber, but there was a legitimate election. And for whatever reason, I ended up in that seat. I got to meet a man. First, we were antagonists, then we became brothers. I got to meet a man who was trained by Malcolm. And Malcolm came back from Mecca with 25 scholarships to Al-Azhar University.
Beat me to the punch. Thank you for that.
And he gave the first scholarship to the brother we would get to know as Imam Tawfiq, the founder of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood. And he went to Cairo and he studied at Al-Azhar University.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, I think while he was studying there, one of Elijah Muhammad's, his youngest son,
Akbar,
Akbar was there.
Right.
And so when we see the Imam sitting here, he's a direct descendant of Imam Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz. That's not somebody promoting him. I want people to understand the timeline and the people on the timeline, so they know who this brother is that's speaking to them as the Imam. There's a genesis to him being the Imam. There's a genesis. Most of the brothers that founded the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood were first members of the Muslim Mosque Inc. Many of the youngsters who would end up in the Black Panther Party were members of Muslim Mosque Inc. You know, there was a connection between the mosque in Elizabeth and in New Jersey and the mosque.
Still functioning too,
yes. And I was trained. Yes, I was trained by those brothers out of Elizabeth. And so I want people to know there is a history, and we were revolutionary Muslims. Now we prayed. We did 5 prayers a day. We studied the language. But we were committed to revolution. And when you talked about Sophia, she was my baby. You know, sometimes I don't let my heart go back to those days of so much emotion. These young revolutionaries that the world don't know about unless we tell them about them. And there were all cubs of Malcolm X, males and females.
Right.
You know, I remember going to that side door at Lincoln Hospital, you know, to get to Matula's and the others. At first I heard of acupuncture. Then me and a brother named WP. I know that, yes, WP, I'm calling your name. You know, he was the first one to take me there. But come back to understanding how May 19th was founded. In the early days, there were other Orthodox Muslims, few of them in different Arab and Ahmadiyya communities, and they laughed at us. They said, you're going and worshiping a man. We said, no, we're not. Read Bukhari, Hadith. Read the Quran. You're supposed to pay tribute to those martyrs who fell in the way of Islam. That was one of your duties. Malcolm was a martyr that fell in the way of Islam. And some of the brothers, I won't call his name because he still lives here in America, but he was from the Sudan. He was one of the brothers. You would think he's still alive, Imam.
I know what you're
almost
talking
90,
about.
you know.
Nice.
And he was very close to my teaching, and he was very instrumental in getting Malcolm. Most of the people that taught Malcolm was not from Saudi Arabia, not from Egypt. Most of his teachings and most of his teachers were from the Sudan from the very beginning
Yes,
of his expanding his consciousness. Even when Malcolm was in the nation, he was expanding his consciousness beyond the nation in terms of his learning Islam. People forget that, what is it, 1957? 59, when he goes to Cairo, he opens the way for Elijah to go into Mecca, a secret that's still kept. I don't understand why. When I walked into Mecca in 1974, I'm hungry. I'm with Malcolm's nephew, and then that was the year in December. You went from 74, 75, I think, the transition.
Right.
Or maybe 75. I just moved to Boston to stay with Ella full time. And I'm going to buy some fruits for Rodnell Collins, Malcolm's nephew, because he's sick. And I said, let me go get him some fruits and stuff. And I'm walking down the street and somebody yelled, Brother Small. And it was Imam Jamal, wrapped around.
Wow.
Standing in the middle of Mecca.
Wow.
We were in the front of the Mecca Hotel. I remember the very building because there was a man there selling bananas and stuff, and I got the bananas. And that was the last time I saw Imam Jamal. On the streets of Mecca.
Wow.
You know.
Wow.
So there's so much history. It's hard to find which little piece you want to pull and talk about. But you come to a teacher, one of the people who taught me much of what I knew through his history and his experience and his very words, and that was Baba Herman Ferguson. Here's a man who, before we knew how to talk about political prisoners, was a political prisoner.
Indeed.
All right. It comes out of the OAAU, you know, under Malcolm X. He's one of the founders, actually, of OAU and Muslim Mosque Inc. And there was always arguments back and forth. We were very defensive, those of us who was doing the pilgrimage to the grave. And we didn't know what to do. Once Haji Sham got sick and the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood stepped forward, we weren't even too sure. But we knew that was the inheritors. Those were Malcolm's cubs direct.
Yes, sir.
And I had to fight a lot of forces, Imam. Had to fight a lot of forces because they didn't understand your relationship, the mosque relationship. I did, because I was in the inner core. But when the Malcolm X Support Committee, and Baba Ferguson, Yuri was still alive.
Yuri
Kochiyama.
Yes.
Our sister, she and her husband. You know, I'm getting old. I got the photograph right there on my altar. Cause she taught at PS 200, and she was my kids' teacher. That was a part of the core committee of the organization. When they came, and we had meetings. It didn't just happen. They didn't just show up on 125th Street.
Right.
We had meetings, and we argued back and forth of how we're going to do this thing, how we make a transition. And then we decided that we would collaborate and do the pilgrimage together. And it just grew and grew and grew from that point forward. And I remember the last conversation I had with Baba Herman, because I think I was arguing with Zaid about something, because Zaid was a young, wild guy. And Baba Herman, see, Baba Herman's word was God to us. Excuse me, we know Allah is the Father of Allah. But he says, don't worry, Brother Small, I'm here to support you. That's all I needed to hear. And then I didn't worry about Zaid no more. Baba Herman has said, we're going to do this. And it is one of the largest and longest pilgrimage
Absolutely.
in North America to anybody.
May 19th, rain or shine. We don't care who you are.
And
what you got, we're
people
going to do that.
Why the pilgrimage to the gravesite of a martyr in Islam is so important. How many people really know that 41 to 49% of the enslaved Africans that came to North America were Muslims?
Yes, sir.
We really don't know that. We really hadn't been into that. I think the only one attempt to try and explain that was something at the Shabazz Center some years ago, And they made an attempt to try to show that history so people could get it. But it hasn't been dealt with enough. See, we came from the fallen Mali Empire, the Songhai Empire. That made up most of West Africa. There was no Ghana then. There was no Nigeria then. This is the Songhai and Mali Empire that we were captured from. We were in a war with the Europeans and the Arabs and the Turks. Not mistaken, they were supposed to be Muslims too.
How about
But
that?
they were capturing other Muslims and selling them to Christians.
Right.
Part of the history we got to face up to.
Yes, sir.
And so you had nearly 40+% of the Africans brought to this country and many parts of the Caribbean were Muslims. The man who started, at least helped to ignite the revolution in Haiti, Bookman, his name, there's no number in the book. He was the book man.
The book was the Quran.
The book was the Quran. They had burnt it into his flesh. There was you catch the book on fire and you put him up against the body. The imprint of the book was on his belly. He was the book man. He was a Muslim. And so was many others in that revolution. Because we came out of, when we study, even now when you go to West Africa and you see the remnants of the Mali Empire and you see the different mosques, then you realize, and I've been in the East among the others, and then I've been in Africa among the Muslims. I put it like that. And so when Baba Herman led your organization to come to that gravesite, that gave it a legitimacy that most people won't understand. That means there was only two brothers standing there who was with Malcolm at that time, Brother Starks and Brother Herman. From the beginning, from the nation to the OAU Mr. Moss, until his death, those two men was at his side. And so we knew we had a mission. Ella even put it in writing because some of the brothers that time, even in the OAU, they weren't interested in doing the pilgrimage. So I was given that assignment in writing. She had begun to get sick. And she gave me the assignment and the authority to keep this pilgrimage going until the people catch it. That was my job. I could literally step away now. I could go in, I can disappear now. Zayed, you got it. Reggie's got it. The brothers from Master Islamic Brotherhood, Imam was down and not feeling too well, but the Master Islamic Brotherhood did not miss a step. The brothers was there, they knew what to do, they knew what to say, they knew how to teach. It is a mission to declare to people that our struggle has a continuity, both ideologically, politically, and spiritually.
Yes,
and Malcolm symbolizes that.
Yes, and may I just interject, Baba?
Certainly.
Yes.
Baba Small mentioned, when you make these moves, there are always people who don't understand, and some things become controversial. As he said, I want to highlight something that he said. First, let me go back to Muslim Mosques Incorporated and MIB. The day of the assassination of Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, as the assassins fled the what was then called the Audubon Ballroom. Only one of them was captured on the scene. The other walked off and got away. But the one who was captured, that was Thomas Hare, later Mujahid Abdul Halim. He was captured by two brothers who were founding members of the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood. And one of them, Brother Ibrahim bin Yahya, may Allah have mercy on him, he just passed away during this previous year, 2024, 2025. He was elderly and ill. And then the other brother, Luqman Abdurrahim, passed several years ago down in Florida. He was in a nursing home.
Yeah, Brother Luqman was a legend, even to us for me.
He was. Yeah, so that's on that. Then the other thing is that there's a period of time that Baba Small mentioned when Sheikh Hisham, became ill. See, but one thing he didn't mention that I want to lift up is that by that time, Baba Smalls and those who were under his leadership, they had created, the rites of passage program, the mentoring program for the Sons of Africa. So they were raising up next generation of children to boys to men. And that was that period when they became the Sentinels, who you see right up until this day, standing at the grave on that day. And one of those youth who became a man and who was a Muslim and who was a member of MIB was Brother Malik Murray.
Yeah.
Yes, we lost that brother.
Yeah, my God, my godson.
Yes, sir.
Gave him to me. I said, he belongs to you.
Of Africa. And so when there was a transitional period, and at that time, I was not involved.
Right.
And so I used to have Malik because he was a natural link between the Sons of Africa and MIB and the Muslim House Incorporated. And so then after he was killed tragically by another young person in Harlem, Malik Murray stepped in to a conflict between two, self-hating young men.
Trying to make the peace.
Right. He stepped in to try to make the peace and ended up being killed. So a martyr. Allah says in the Quran, think not of those who are slain in the way of Allah, that they are dead. Nay, they are not dead. They are living, though you perceive it not. That's right. But that's straight from the Quran.
Yeah. Thank you, Imam.
After that was Bob Smalls called me, and he knows that Bob Smalls and I have known each other since 1974. Okay, I was in the biomedical program at City College at that time. I had been a Muslim maybe 3 years. And one day at City College, they had a prayer room there. So I was in there, praying, making salah. And Baba Smalls popped in and he introduced himself. And he and I have known each other, all of these decades, worked together. I used to, when I was at Sing Sing prison, I used to have Baba Smalls come up, teach your brothers and talk to them.
And then brothers still talk about it. Those that have come home still talk about that.
Right. And so it's important. People have to know this history. Now, there's another ancestor whose name we haven't mentioned, but I'm going to mention now because it helps to connect all of this together. And I'm talking about Elombe Brath.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. So it was Elombe Brath who, as a youth, he never hid it. As a youth, our revolutionary Pan-Africanist community-based leader, Elombe Brath, when he was a youngster coming up, right, one of his mentors was a Muslim, all right? And everybody in his family knows that. So once I became the Imam at the Mosque of Islamic Brotherhood, which by Allah's mercy, this coming November, I pray I'm still alive and well then, but this coming November will make 35 years that I have at MIB. So one night I was walking with Elombe Brath. We were coming from, and see, we have to relate this history so that the young people who are online, they need to hear this. This is not in books. The only way you're going to get it is by speaking with your elders.
That's right. That's why we're doing this.
The Patrice Lumumba Coalition always had regular monthly programs at Harriet Tubman School on 127th Street in Harlem. And I used to go to many of those programs. So one night, I was walking with Brother Elombe, and he said to me, I'd been the Imam a few years. He said, listen, I know who the MIB is. I know who you are, and I knew your teacher. And I remembered when you all started organizing in Harlem. Just what Imam Braf said to me. He said, and I know of your descendancy from the Muslim House Incorporated. And you, he's talking to me. He was my elder also. He said, you, Imam Talib, you need to lift up that legitimate connection between MIB, Muslim House Incorporated, and Malik Shabazz. He said, because you have a lot of people who are claiming, linkage to Malcolm, who there was nowhere to be found back then. Yes. And people who have an illegitimate claim. He said, you all have a legitimate claim, and you should make it known. So that's when I, as a leader, I took that, advice from my elder, and I began, I'm not making anything up. Baba Smalls, he has the history. He knows. Baba Herman Ferguson, he knew. I remember one year we were up at the gravesite, and Baba Herman Ferguson said, he bore witness. He said, no. I finished talking, and he said, right there, he said, that's what Malcolm used to teach. He said, that's how he used to speak as a Muslim. And then lastly, and I turn it right back over to Baba, as the years went by, now we're talking decades are going by, and we go from 2 cars that Baba Smalls mentioned to busloads of
all over the country.
From all over the country, and here lately from outside of the country.
Oh yeah.
Coming. And so again, we at the mosque, we used to catch flack from some of the other Sunni Muslims for participating. Why y'all participating? This is not this, this is not that. And we used to say, and still do, I say, listen, first of all, this is a community gathering of our people. It's a diverse community gathering. You have people there of African descent. And when you look at the gathering, they reflect the reality of the African continent. The reality of the African continent is that, there are many faith traditions on the African continent. But one thing, they live together as neighbors. You know what I mean? They have their families intermarried and all of that. That's how it is right now.
Yes, sir.
And it's an event. It's an event that brings all of these diverse people from the diaspora together, and it's honoring a Muslim. That's right. So we felt compelled, not even going into the lineage and all of that, we felt compelled to be there with our brothers and sisters of diverse backgrounds in order to honor this Muslim. And we should remember that Sister Betty Bahia Shabazz is buried right there also in the same grave with him. And their grandson, Malcolm Latif, is buried not too far from there. See, you have people that are not aware of all of these things. And so
who is there now?
As the event grew, and we, as Muslims, we said, we got to a point where we said, looking at our faith traditions, as Baba Small just said. So in the Islamic faith traditions, you have what is called, one of our traditions is called a ziyarah.
I was going to come to that. You're right on point, right on time. Break it down, make it plain for us, sir. Yes,
ziyarah, and is where we go to the graves of those who have come before us, and we pray for them. We recite Quran, we pray for them. And I'll just say, any black person knows it. I mean, anybody knows that, this alien influence that African people in America have come under, wherein, you know, a family member or somebody revered passes away and we turn them over to a funeral home and the funeral home buries them and then we forget about them. That's alien to African culture. You know, even, you know, like me, I'm from the South, like Baba Small. Okay. All right. So that was always visiting the graves and praying for the deceased. That was part of what I was taught growing up. You know, I watched my own family. I mean, we didn't, because even down south in the old day, I mean, they would bury people's remains right in the backyard and things, you know, things of that nature. So we're not talking about something that's alien, an alien practice to us as Americans of African descent, or as in Lombe Braff used to say to me, he used to say, no. I said, no what? He said, we're not Americans of African descent, we're Africans of American descent. He used to say to me. So we're familiar with that. And as Muslims, we have the tradition of ziyarah. So we are always there with everybody else from the village participating. And then when the event ends and people go to their buses, so we always stay behind. And we specifically carry out those Islamic traditions, reciting Quran, making what we call du'as and supplications, and that type of thing. So people should know that on that day, May 19th, we gather together as one village. And we're not nobody's there trying to impose, you know, their belief or their practice on anybody else. We stand there, you know, respecting each other, as Malik Shabazz taught us to do.
Yes, sir.
Respect each other in spite of our faith differences, without at all compromising who we are. And it's Baba Small's leadership throughout the decades that has made sure that spirit endures. You know, sometimes you get people, Baba Small knows that, you get people of conscience, and they come up to participate, but they don't really understand what's going on. Okay. So they'll come up to honor Malcolm, and they're saying little slick things out the side of their mouth about Islam and all of that kind of stuff. And Baba Smalls has always made sure, straighten up.
Check it out. Right.
Let's straighten this out.
Check it at the door. That's right.
And we all here as members of the same village, whose ancestry comes from the same continent. So let's respect each other. And I've noticed, I haven't been up there in a couple of years because I became ill. I hope I'll be well enough to come this year. But I had started noticing that the young people attending, they were picking up that spirit that Baba Smalls was talking about. And we just kind of all up there honoring one of our martyrs, and may Allah have mercy on him and grant him the highest level of paradise.
Got to say two things, and thank you both so much. This has been more than an incredible hour. Baba James, I want to thank you.
Well, I want to give you something that very few people have had or know.
Okay, go ahead. You do that.
When I was in Mecca in 74, 75, there is something called the Rabat Alim al-Islamin.
Right. Muslim World League. Right.
The Muslim World League.
Yes.
And when I entered that body initially, they weren't very receptive. They thought I came there to get some books. I said, no, I didn't come for books. So after sitting an entire day refusing to leave, they decided to see me, because I had a letter from the Muslim Mosque Inc. and from the center at One Riverside Drive at that time, the Islamic Center. And upon the letter being translated, taken to the elders, I was treated like I was a prince. And when the elders brought me in for the evening prayer, and they stood me on the first row with all the sheikhs, you know, I was shaking so bad I couldn't remember my prayers. But what they told me is that there Malcolm is referred to as Holy Malik. I didn't understand the implication. It says, Holy Malik. And the black world needs to know. Forget about the other world. Our world needs to know. In the Rabat Alim al-Islamin, he is known as Holy Malik, a saint in Islam. By all the legal jurisprudence that the Rabat have the authority to give. It's the first time I've said it really publicly, but people need to know, because the Imam have done such a beautiful timeline on the history. I'm waiting to read that book, because you just laid out the beauty, a timeline that I lived through, and all the names you call the people I met and knew, and the same for you.
Yes, sir.
But this Hajj Malik Shabazz was an extraordinary spirit among us, and he got lost in the wilderness like most of us.
Mm-hmm.
And Islam became his light. Now, anyone who denies that is a foolish person. Islam became his light, and then he became Islam. He became the Muslim. And that was his power. Nothing could faze him. You couldn't buy him. You couldn't frighten him. You couldn't intimidate him. He was the best example of a black man. The best example.
And adding on to what Baba Small, and please forgive me, because I don't like to talk after the elder. I have to always say to them.
No, please.
So
we're having a conversation.
Okay, so you all remember, I was just thinking this morning with tears in my eyes, I was remembering Muhammad Ali's fight in Africa, the Rumble in the Jungle.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, after Ali regained his throne, get the pretender off the throne, the king has returned. Okay. He went on a world tour before he came back to the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And all of these countries were celebrating him. Then he finally came back home to the United States. Then they invited him to the White House, you know, and gave him a medal and all of that. You know, so why do I mention this? I mention this because the world has honored and celebrated Hajj Malik el-Shabazz, Malcolm X, for years before we finally have gotten to it here in America. You know, so for instance, you know, the United States Postal Service back in the 90s somewhere, they put out a Malcolm X stamp.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's just a rare stamp now with a Malcolm X postage stamp. But the first Malcolm X postage stamp appeared in the early 1980s in Iran.
That's right.
Okay.
We use that on our old webpage.
Right. Right now, in Turkey, the embassy row there is named after Malik Shabazz. You know?
And they were very upfront and said, yes, you know that the United States government does not like it.
Right.
This is our self-determination.
So if you go to Turkey now and you want to get
That's right.
visa, you're American. In order for you to get back to America, you got to come through Malcolm X. That's how it is. So we need to be aware of I was in Mali one year, Baba Small, in Bamako. Okay. I was in a building where they do all kind of, work for the people. And I walked through the building, I looked in the room, they had a big mural up on the wall, quote from Malik Shabazz. I was in Malaysia one year, I think it was 2002, speaking. I closed my address quoting Malik Shabazz and the people there who are very academic, very, Malaysians, they have very quiet personalities. Mm-hmm. I mentioned Malik Shabazz, they jumped up and started cheering and yelling. And see, everybody knows.
Big Muslim country. The people don't realize how big Malaysia and Indonesia are.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Saying that to support what Baba Smalls had said. You know, and that people need to recognize that the whole world recognizes that this man was a Muslim. He was centered on the Quran and Sunnah and prophetic tradition. And one of the long-lasting effects of his example and his leadership that's taking place right now amongst the younger generation, the Black Lives Matter generation. See, once during that final year of Malik Shabazz's life, he was not only concerned with, as he would say, you know, helping people to get a higher understanding of what Islam is really about, as opposed to a version of what it's about. But in doing so, he turned the civilizational focus of Islam, as he was now preaching it, from the Arab world to Africa.
Yes, sir.
This is very important.
Yes, sir.
You know, when you see that picture of him in Nigeria,
Sir.
you know, with the traditional robes on of the African Caliphate of Usman Dan Fodio.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the picture closely, he's got two big books in his hand. Those two big books are the Quran
Yes.
and the Hadith. He's doing this purposely. He's sending signals. So now during the Black Lives Matter generation, there's a whole generation now of young people who are Africans of American descent, who are centered on Africa with regards to their Islam. They're not just going anymore. You know, Baba Smalls mentioned Azhar. You always have to remind them. You know, Azhar is in Egypt. It was in Africa. You know?
Yeah.
How about that?
But
That's
they're not going to Azhar anymore. You know, they're going to Fez, Morocco. They're going to Sudan. They're going to different, because they want to be rooted in the culture, the Muslim civilizational culture of Africa generally and West Africa in particular. And this is a long-lasting effect of the example and the leadership of Malik Shabazz, and the way that people like Baba Smalls and my teacher, Sheikh Alama Tawfiq, may Allah have mercy on him and forgive his sins. You know, it's leaders like them who have helped to carry this legacy forward. And I'm just grateful to Allah personally to be, you know, recipient of that legacy and to do whatever I can to help carry that legacy forward, inshallah.
MashaAllah. Now, having said that, and I just want to add a couple points, and I'll ask each of you one last question as we wind up. Both of you would be pleased to know that one of the things that I'm proud of the Black Lives Matter women is that so many of our granddaughters and daughters have stepped up in the leadership. And there's one sister, and I don't want to embarrass her because I love her so, but who is a Muslim, who leads Black Lives Matter grassroots, and she now is administering some 52 chapters of that, where, you know, they oversee some core training. They you know, this is not just that loose stuff that went on in the George Floyd summer and some folks never really developed. There are some folks that stopped, slowed down, and paid attention to organizational development and developed under the leadership of a young Muslim woman. Brilliant young sister. She may be a part of the feature of our next conversation. We're trying to tie up the loose pieces of that now, because she also participated, along with Brother Charles, Brother Baba James, to the trip to Grenada for Mama Louise.
Right.
Got to say that. One of the places that I would love, and you know, you and I both have been trying to work on our little Brother Charles, right, who's a natural teacher amongst us, right, that I would love to develop, as you've done already, rites of passage programs. One for the males and one for the females. I would love to see us get to that, as we still got, that core amongst us that understands its value, right? But
No, absolutely.
Hmm?
And let me add something, because a lot of those who are non-Muslim, if we threw out language, throw language out, there's only one core principle that governs the universe. One core principle. There's only one element that we call God. And there's always been only one element. In the Arabic language, we say Allah to describe that one core element. In other languages across Africa, and that's why there's such harmony in Africa between what you call indigenous religions and Islam. There's not a conflict there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in the same household, there's not a conflict there. And I'm in and out of that continent 2, 3, 4 times a year for decades. And I used to wonder how they get along. Because they understand. It doesn't matter how you say one God, as long as you understand and mean one God. You know what I'm saying? So, and even like I'm wearing a lekes now,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing in the Yoruba language that call Orishas God. Nothing. Okay? That's our misunderstanding in Western culture. In the Yoruba, there's only one God, supreme. Only one. And there's no others that are called God in the language. You understand? The fundamental principle of the universe. You can get deeper at brothers and sisters who, when they're examining Islam before you come in, when you don't know what to do, study the 99 pearls of faith.
Yes, sir.
Study the 99 names of Allah. The 99 qualities and attributes that we should all try to aspire to at least 1, 2, or 3, or 4, or more to develop in our character. And you will say, oh my God, wherever in the world where the righteous stand, these principles hold fast. I just wanted to bring that clarity because some who we think, well, oh, I'm a Christian, or oh, I'm a Yoruba, or no. Neither one of those traditions, except when it got into the hands of the enemy of God, took on this polytheistic foolishness. It is not in the tradition of our ancestors, polytheism. Doesn't exist.
Come on, Baba.
Doesn't exist.
That's it.
And so it becomes important. That's why Malcolm was a study of history. And I remember when I moved to Boston, and then I'll leave it there. And Ella gave me his room, and it was just as he had left it. But he had that story.
Come on.
and there was a book by Camus sitting on his reading table, and the title of it was Resistance, Rebellion, and Death. And I finished reading that book from where he left off, and then I started back over and read the whole thing for myself. And I realized this man, then his rooms was books. This man read incessantly. He understood history, he understood politics, he understood European culture, he understood Indian culture, he understood African culture. He understood the world as a single community. And that's why Islam made sense, because Islam is one of the few traditions of knowing the divine that didn't get contaminated completely by the European intruders. And even though there's some peripheral contamination in the so-called, unquote, Middle East, when you go into West Africa, and this, Imam, I know most people don't understand that there are schools of thought in Islam. And one of the schools of thought in West Africa that's very dominant is the Maliki school.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you will find that this school of thought had fought against that Eastern stuff for a long time, right up until the 10th century before the Ottomans. That's why history is important. You know, when you're looking at the daughter of the Prophet. They named their movement after the Prophet's daughter.
Fatima.
Fatima, the Fatimites, they called them. And when you study that period, you say, aha, this is where we saw the divide. From the 9th century to the 10th century, when the Ottoman would assume power, but then from the 8th century to the 10th century, you had a rebellion among the Turkish Mameluke and the other big Turkish group that wrestled Islam out of the hands of the African, especially in Egypt. But we centered Islam as brought by the Prophet Muhammad wasallam. If we don't understand what, we get so crazy involved in this thing called the Moors in North Africa, which was a white person way of calling us by what they thought was our color, going back to a Greek word, and it meant almost the same as Negro, with no disrespect. I'm just trying to deal with history. Then you miss the point of how the guardian of Islam moved from the Middle East to Africa and then down into West Africa. You miss the flow. You miss the flow. We talk about going into Spain. Yes, that was an extraordinary 700-800 years. But something else was happening. And even after they left Spain, where did they go? They went to Mali. They went to Senegal. They went to Mauritania. They went to northern Ghana. They went to Nigeria. Those same people who was in Spain and in North Africa. The same African Muslim. But they didn't just go. The University of Timbuktu wasn't just a liberal arts university. It was a sanctuary for the integrity of Islamic scholarship. A sanctuary for the integrity of Islamic scholarship. It wasn't just the University of Jenin. It wasn't just we had a college. No. The mission was deeper than that, to make sure we do not lose the message that the Prophet brought to us. Don't lose the message. Don't change the message. You can read all the hadith you want, but if the hadith contradicts the Quran, the hadith is unworthy. You know. But anyway, there's just so much that we must study the history to and understand the foundation and the movement of Islam.
We could do a whole series.
Yes.
And really blow this out.
And Haj Malik understood this. Somehow that young man in that few years grasped this thing. And as Imam was pointing out, when he's standing in that dress in Nigeria and he's holding the hadith of the Quran, the message to the East was profound. Yes. And they heard that message.
Lord have mercy.
Let me ask y'all one last question. And of course, we went over our hour. We ain't mad. It's our space, our time. Right? And we apologize for those who only scheduled for an hour, because that's how we built the series. In the scholarship that has been done on Malcolm so far, where are some of the pieces and places where each of you think we absolutely need to go to give it some more muscularity, if you don't mind me using the language that I use to describe Cuba all the time?
Well, we have to do a greater study of him as the Muslim. You're not going to understand why he does what he does if you don't understand him as a Muslim.
Right.
And everybody's trying to write these scholarships that's saying, oh, he was about to become a Marxist. No, he wasn't. He understood Marxism. He understood the contradiction. He was about to be this politically. No, he remained foundationally, and this is the key. His foundation is Islam. If you understand the foundation, then you recognize the growth of the fruits that come from that foundation. Otherwise, you can mistake it for something else. And there's, I forgot the surah, but it's right after the Battle of Badr, when the wealth that is gathered is distributed to the poor. There was no Karl Marx or Lenin yet.
Right.
Okay. That behavior, being communal, collective, and cooperative, is at the very root of Islam. Islam didn't wait for socialism to understand that process of being human. And Malcolm understood this.
Amen. Imam, what say you?
I would add to the reading list the book, and I was just looking because I wanted to make sure I get the title of it right. There's a book entitled "By Any Means Necessary," Malcolm X, Real, Not Reinvented.
Yes.
That's the title.
Herb Boyd,
Right.
the principal editor.
Right. So
one of 4 recent books by Third World Press. Got to shout them out. Third World Press also did Malcolm's Diary.
yes.
They just dropped a piece called Malcolm in the Black Arts, and I'm forgetting the 4th one. It's 4 that they just put out within the last 3 years. You have, yes, sir.
There's also a book entitled "The Black Book: The True Political Philosophy of Malcolm X."
Oh,
That was written by
yes,
late ancestor Dr. Yusuf Naeem Clay, who was head of the Canadian branch of the OAAU.
Mm-hmm.
So he wrote a book called "The Black Book," in which he shows how the political philosophy of Malik Shabazz is rooted deeply in Islamic teachings and principles. So I would recommend that as well.
I do remember that. Yes, yes. That's what I want to, on behalf of the organization and everybody paying attention and everybody that's going to look at it later and all of that, and appreciation each of you on both of your very long walks. I want to thank you for your time. Papa James, I wanted to just say what I was trying to say earlier. I wanted to also thank you. And there was a time when I had to take over for the work of Khalid Abdul Muhammad Khalid and
Yes, sir.
there's also up at Ferncliff, right?
Well, you and I go back a long ways too. You realize that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
He must have been a little kid.
Yeah, but when I took over, and there was a debate as to whether or not we should go to the grave site or be a part of the shutdown of 125th Street. I said we're gonna do both, but we go to the grave site.
Yes.
You asked us to be the honor guard for the ceremony. The brothers in white, and we had the perimeter in black, and we did that for almost 15 years. It was one of the highlights of the challenges of that history. In fact, I struggle with the leadership of that organization on 2 fronts. One, to develop a paper. Malcolm developed Muhammad Speaks. People forget that. And 2, to develop a similar ceremony for our general, right? Collins, right there. You gave us a blueprint on how to do it, right? I wish
the Imam just read the Quran implores us to visit the sites of those who fell in the way of Islam. And certainly Khalid would number among those.
Yes. And we miss him too dearly. Miss him very dearly. We miss him very dearly. Right? So everyone, we gave you a lot in this hour and a half. We got you a book list that you probably weren't expecting. You heard names that you probably haven't heard before, but you heard all of the important dimensions of the soul of the man that makes up the faith and the spiritual lineage and legacy of the man we call Malcolm. We want to thank you all supremely for listening. We say, long live Asada Shakur. Sada Ulubala Shakur. Grateful one who struggles. That's what her name means. Right? We say, long live Bilal Sunni Ali, who we were originally dedicating this evening to. We say, long live all those members of the BLA that liberated Assad on November 2nd, 1979, led by Sekou Udenga, Dr. Matulu Shakur, and others. And we say thank you for being a part of our moving forward. We African time, there's past, present, and future. For our present and future, We say thank you and looking forward to your leadership. What to do? Get ready for these upcoming dates on both sides of the water that we're pulling together. I apologize again that our webpage, our Facebook page is taken down. We will fix that when the time comes. And we look forward to getting back into a real space in that. And please, on the front of our political prisoners, tomorrow, and I mentioned, and let me just say this to both of you very quickly. Tomorrow is a vigil, an online vigil that takes place at 7 o'clock that Brother Shep runs for Kamal Siddiqui. All right. And I was supposed to, and I totally forgot to reach out to both of you. And I'll send you the information afterwards. Because we need an imam and we need, an African traditionalist in the vigil. And that was my assignment. I got to take some self-criticism on that. But, you love Asada, help us freak him out. You love Malcolm's faith, his great comrades who are still in prison are Muslim. Kamal Siddiqui, Imam Jamil, they got to come home, right? There's some very basic places to go. And we could not have the incredible life of Asada's maroonage legacy if it were not for the palenque of the Western world that is the Cuban Revolution.
Absolutely.
The Cuban Revolution deserves our deepest solidarity at this time, like no other time, perhaps in the modern epic, because of the madness of these bloodsuckers in Washington going buck wild right now, threatening Venezuela and Cuba as we speak. So we thank you. Our next Revolutionary Fourth Sunday will be on October 26th. Preliminarily, it's going to be on the pilgrimage to Grenada that some of our members and supporters participated in. It might shift if we can't get the commitments, but we'll put that out in the Mississippi Minute. We thank you all. As we say, as we always do as we close, X is in Malcolm in the answer, and we will see you in the whirlwind.